In for TV review is a 1963 Zenith model K2214, a 19-inch portable black and white television receiver with Space Command 300 remote control. The model K2214, known as the Acapulco and Zenith marketing literature, is the very finest portable black and white receiver for the 1963 model year. It is housed in an all-steel cabinet for durable construction. Some of the fine features include built-in dipole antennas, a deluxe carry handle, dual push-button control for fingertip operation. Controls let you power the set on or off, or change channels. A microphone for the Space Command receiver, and a hidden control door which reveals auxiliary controls for volume setting and fine-tuning. And here is the Space Command 300 remote control. This deluxe hand unit lets you change channels, control volume, or mute the volume with the simple press of a button. It is supported by a built-in hook on the front of the receiver, and a stylized Zenith crest is noted behind the control unit. High attention to detail in cabinet styling is evident on Zenith products. A metal perforated speaker grille, side controls for vertical hold, brightness, and contrast. And now for a look at the rear of the receiver. The metal construction continues on the back cover. The set operates at 120 volts alternating current and a power consumption of 250 watts. It's powered by the 16K27QS chassis. Here's the manual channel override. And the original Zenith literature. Let's take a look at the inside of this highly crafted instrument. Here's a look at the 16K27 QS chassis. This is the typical Zenith handcrafted, hand-wired chassis, and it uses point-to-point construction. So let's start off by looking at the chassis label. There's some pertinent information to be deciphered here. 16 indicates that this chassis has 16 tubes, and that includes the CRT. K is the model year, which is 1963 in this case. 27 is a random chassis identifier. And QS indicates that the chassis was designed to accommodate Space Command remote control. So you'll see that this set has most of its original tubes. Here's the vertical oscillator and output tube. It's an octal type, a 6EM7. And you'll see these round stamps with numbers on them throughout the chassis as well. These are quality control checkpoints. And these sets were built in Chicago at Zenith's plant number 1 at 6001 West Dickens Avenue. Here's the original horizontal output tube, a Type 6 DQ6 with a date code of 6235. 6DE4 damper tube on the right. And a nice large power transformer. Pull the antennas up out of the way here. You'll see in back is the low voltage rectifier. Type 3 DG4. Here's the tube layout diagram. And the neck of the picture tube. This set has a focus control on the CRT socket. You simply just rotate this here to obtain the best focus on the screen. Here's the high voltage cage. And back to the left hand side of the chassis. Here's the IF strip with the 3 tubes. And this is an interesting piece here to point out. We have a piece of chrysotile asbestos. It's being used as a heat shield to deflect some of the heat away from the Space Command transistors. And you can see those transistors on the bottom of the chassis here. And you'll only see this asbestos on sets with Space Command. So most likely those circuits were very sensitive to heat. They're tuned to operate in the range of 40 megacycles. So any heat probably causes those circuits to drift, and it won't allow the Space Command remote to work. And that looks to be in pretty good shape, so there's really no reason to tamper with it. It's original to the set and it serves its purpose. So I'll leave it alone. And here's the Space Command chassis mounted to the side of the cabinet. It has a cardboard cover here to protect the coils and also some of the relays. This is the automatic manual bypass switch. Back there is the original CRT label. It's a 19 CQP4. A good strong original tube in this set. And here is the VHF tuner and Space Command motor drive assembly. You'll see there's a label back there. Let's see if I can focus on it. I used to put these on TVs that I acquired years ago. And I'd indicate when I acquired the TV and some of the major repairs that were done. So I got this one back on April 30th, 2004. And I purchased it on eBay from Green Bay, Wisconsin. And it looks like the repairs done at the time were some vertical capacitors, a tuner gear, and a fuse holder. All okay. And it looks like I had to do some tube replacement almost a year after the fact on March 20th of 2005. So I really didn't use this set much at all. But yeah, I remember replacing the tuner gear. Fairly common issue on these. The nylon gear will crack. And there's also a rubber O-ring that's used as a drive belt. And that'll dry rot and then the belt will break. So if I remember right, I replaced that too. But all that's still in pretty good shape after all these years. And the fuse holder was a very unusual issue. I believe it was this one right here I had to replace. The bakelite actually cracked on the bottom of the socket. I don't think it was from shipping, because this TV I had shipped from Green Bay and it came in perfect condition. I remember how happy I was when I opened the box and saw that there were no issues with the cabinet. But for whatever reason, that fuse holder was cracked, and it looked like it was cracked for a long time because there was a lot of dust inside the cracks. So that's probably a reason why the set didn't get used. I think some of the spring tension on an already failed fuse holder just eventually let loose. Because if I remember right, the set didn't work, and that was the reason why. So here I'll show you how the Space Command works. This is a rather unusual Space Command 300 setup. It actually uses a stopper on the VHF tuner to serve as the on-off switch. So this set being VHF only, since it was built before the FCC mandate, which was April 30th, 1964, which was the all-channel tuning mandate. This set used the UHF position to serve as the on-off point. So you see it's got a micro switch here. Otherwise, the volume stepper just serves that purpose exclusively. It's a volume stepper down to the mute function, and then that'll just repeat itself as you press the button. So here, if I press the channel selector, you'll see it'll advance the drive motor. Now the set turns on. You can see the tubes are warming up. So let's let that warm up for a minute here. And there goes the high voltage. So as I press the space command channel, you'll see this will advance.
I'd like to have some hot chocolate. Thanks. I'd love it.
And it's back to the off position. And it'll just repeat itself. So you can see by rotating these tabs 90 degrees, we'll press on this leaf switch to turn the motor on or off.
Remember that purse you saw in Freeman's window?
The one with the mink lining?
The one with the nylon lining.
Oh, yeah.
They ordered it for
And
you.
there's the volume stepper.
Thanks.
And we're in the mute mode.
You feel better.
And the set's back to being off. So the remote chassis is always live, and you can just turn this to manual mode and operate the set with the push buttons on the top, in which case everything is off. But being a solid state or transistorized space command chassis, there's very little current draw by having the space command chassis active. So we'll take a look at the bottom of the chassis, and we'll see in even greater detail how the 16K27QS chassis was assembled. Looking at the bottom of the chassis, you can see it's quite congested, although it was very carefully constructed. No production shortcuts, as Zenith used to say in their advertising literature, and that certainly shows here. Here's some original markings by the plant workers. These are either their initials or some kind of quality control check. And I'll have to replace some capacitors. I'll start off by replacing this bumblebee here. It's a 0.033 microfarad at 200 volts, and it's in the video amplifier circuit. The next cap I have to replace is also a 0.033. This one's rated at 400 volts, and it's in the width circuit, which is part of the horizontal output. And the last two capacitors, I technically don't need to replace, but I want to replace these two anyway just to make the TV meet my higher standards for quality components. That's because I replaced these two capacitors back in 2004 when I first got this TV. And at the time I just went after repairing what the problem was, and this set had a vertical issue. If I remember right, the vertical wouldn't fully fill the screen, so it was caused by this one right here. It's a coupling cap between the oscillator and output. It's a 0.1 at 400 volts. That's the factory value. And this one is a 0.0068 microfarad at 200 volts. So I got the values matched, of course, although these cheap no-name caps are just 630 volt. Certainly not an issue, but now that I'm revisiting this TV all these years later, I want to go ahead and install the official orange drop caps. And these are the real ones, made in USA. These ones are made by SBE, which is basically any orange drop made before 2013. These were made in Barrie, Vermont, and CDE sold the product line in 2013, and they immediately moved production to Mexico. And that's not an issue because the quality is very high still on the Mexican-made caps, but it's nice to have American-made parts in the American-made Zenith TV. So here's a look at the 16K27 schematic. Here's the tube layout diagram. And a quick overview of the caps that are going to be replaced. You can see here's C16, that's the 0.033 in the video amp. It's in the cathode circuit. And the second capacitor is C57. That's the 0.033 in the width circuit. And here are the two caps that I'm going to replace again. C41 and C42. And the integrator should be good. The TV still seems to be working pretty well after all these years. But those bumblebee caps, those can fail at any time. I'm actually surprised I don't really have any video issues because of this. Or width, because these are almost always bad. Now the electrolytic caps, I'm going to leave those alone. I typically leave electrolytics alone if the ESR is satisfactory, and these all have a low ESR. And that goes with the with these filter cans as well. Low ESR. So there's no point in chopping this all up just to replace something that's not even bad to begin with. So I'm going to go ahead and start replacing these caps, and that should complete the electronic restoration. Capacitor replacement is well underway at this point. I just want to take a moment and share with you a tip for replacing components on a point-to-point chassis. You'll notice that 0.1 microfarad capacitor is not installed yet. And this is what I want to bring your attention to. This is where the lead will attach for the new capacitor. And you can see there's a small hole in the solder cone. And generally what happens is when you replace a part, you're holding your soldering iron on this solder cone here, and at the same time you're using your needle nose pliers, holding the component lead, and you're basically trying to force that component lead into the molten solder. And generally these cones are pretty compacted with other component leads, and it can be very difficult to get a good seating of that new component lead. And at the same time you're also creating a lot of dwell time with your iron as you're trying to maneuver that component, and that dwell time could overheat some of the adjacent parts. So what I like to do, I use this torch tip cleaner, and it's made out of aluminum. And what you want to do, you pick a torch tip that's slightly larger in diameter than the new component lead. And what you want to do, this is very simple, as you're heating up that solder cone, you've got the rigidity of this tip cleaner. You could just force that in to the cone and basically creates a new hole or a pocket for the new component lead to go into. And with this being aluminum, the solder will not adhere to it. So you could just move this a little bit once you get the solder nice and hot. And once it cools, you could slowly pull this out. And again, you're left with that nice hole there. And then here's the new component. You could see it simply can be inserted with no real effort. See, I got about a 1/2 to 3/8 of an inch of depth there. And here's the solder cone. These are about 3/8 of an inch, maybe a 1/2 inch at the most. So you're able to get that lead depth just like the factory achieved. And it's handy because now that gives you the ability to bend and maneuver the leads and kind of do test fits with the component before you obligate yourself to soldering it into place. So this works real well, and it saves a lot of time and potential damage. Okay, capacitor replacement is now complete. Let's take a look and see the finished installation. Here's C16. This was the 0.033 microfarad at 200 volt. Here's C57 in the width circuit, the 0.033 microfarad at 400 volt. And here's C41 in the vertical oscillator to output, 0.1 microfarads rated at 400 volts. And here's C42, 0.0068 microfarads. Factory rating should be 200 volts, but the smallest capacitor available in an orange drop was a 400 volt. Certainly not an issue to exceed the voltage rating. And those all went in very easily. Some of these other capacitors, like these original Mencos, known as brown drops, these are a paper mylar type. These are generally good capacitors. Cornell Dubilier also made these. Here's an original one. And these ceramic tubular caps are generally good in this era of TV. So these only need to really be replaced on an as-needed basis. Transformer, 343 226. So 343 indicates it's made by Zenith. Manufactured the 26th week of 1962. We've got our dual diode, which is probably the horizontal phase detector. Here's the replaced capacitors. The .033 is up top. And these are the two Mylar caps that I installed back in 2004. Interestingly enough, these actually tested okay, both capacitance and leakage at their rated voltages. Very unusual. We're ready to reinstall the bottom panel and the back cover. And we'll be able to test this TV out. The TV is fully reassembled now, and we're ready for the final test.
One of those lettermen.
Hi, Jess. Hello, Jess.
Hi.
So who are you taking?
Hi, Gidget. My father said I could rent a tux, so everything is A.O. boy. If you're in doubt about angels being real, I can arrange to change any doubts you feel. Wait till you see my Gidget. You want her for your Valentine. You're gonna say she's all that you adore, but stay away. Gidget is spoken for, you're gonna find that Gidget is mine.
She's the queen of comedy.
Lucy!
We love Lucy as...
Lucy Ricardo!
And
I'm Lucy Carmichael.
it's twice the size. See why Lucy was a pioneer. At noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific,
I saw it on television.
followed by I Love Lucy at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific.
This I gotta see.
Right here on Decades.
Durf. Of all people in the world, Durf the drag. Just tell me why, that's all. A simple little why.
I wanted to build up his ego. He's always slumping around the school like no one can stand him.
You know why? Because no one can stand him.
He has no self-confidence.
Because he can't even stand himself. Well, one thing he's got, good taste. Anyway, who are you, Florence Nightingale?
I made a bet with John.
Your psycho brother-in-law.
It is my contention that a therapeutic life experience can mend a shattered ego, or at least put it back on the road to health. Listen, stock is stuck. point am I in contest with Sherry Lou?
Since she transferred over from Uni High 4 weeks ago and set you up as the competition.
Well, I couldn't care less. Maybe if I'm really lucky, I'll break my leg before the dance.
Well, you know you could break the date.
Breaking the leg would be easier. Did you see the way he looked today? Different. He almost smiled.
Good range on the vertical hold.
You should have seen Sherry Lou.
Here's
Practically
the
undid the whole
brightness.
top of her head. You know who you should show up with? A cross between Prince Charming, Ringo, and Sandy Koufax.
Good range on brightness and the contrast.
Anybody who's 1/40th of that is already taken.
Good contrast range.
Six run, 175 pound even. Run 109.5 flat, full equipment, move like a whippet. And my 70-yard touchdown passes are not uncommon. One of you gadget?
Gidget.
Oh, Chuck Batson here. Your father said to wait.
My father? Father?
And the prop's gonna coach me. At college, you want to be a quarterback, they got a rule about grammar, and, well, they don't think I talk such hot grammar. Back home in Bensonhurst, I talk splendid, but, rules is rules, I get you.
Gidget.
I'm LaRue. I think you talk splendid right here.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm waiting for your old man. I mean, the prop. Go ahead, Gadget. Leroy? It's okay.
What makes you so sure he'll go to the dance with you?
At college, you want to play quarterback, you got a rule about grammar. You want to get a good grade from prof, you get a good with gadget.
Father would never grade like that.
Yeah, you know that, and I know that, but Super Red is new around here, isn't he, Roy?
Blackmail.
It's polished persuasion, and any girl who didn't take advantage of it is crazy.
So what are you going to tell Durf?
The truth.
That you're ditching him to show up Sherry Lou.
Not that truth.
Which?
I don't know, I haven't made it up yet. But I will. I may hate myself in the morning, but I can't pass up a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity like this. What?
You'll never do it.
Oni soir qui mal pense. That's French. If you think so, that's your problem.
Coco va. That's French for chicken.
What's such a big deal about breaking a day anyway? Mrs. Durfner? Is Norman there? He isn't? Oh, what a pity. No message. All right, tell him Gidget called and asked him to come over tonight.